Hello and welcome to the International Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you major news developments from around the world. Our headlines: Ghana's main opposition party disputes election results, US federal and state governments accuse Facebook of antitrust violations in lawsuit, Ecuador's Electoral Council approves Andres Arauz Carlos Rabascal presidential ticket, US Senate votes to block bipartisan resolutions against arms sales to UAE, and activists extend solidarity to Julian Assange and demand his release. In our first story, Ghana's opposition has rejected the results of the parliamentary and presidential elections held on December 7th. Incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo of the New Patriotic Party was declared the winner of the elections with a vote share of 51.59%. Former President John Mahama from the main opposition party, the National Democratic Congress, reportedly secured 47.36% of the vote. Members of the NDC have rejected these results and have called for decisive steps to be taken to overturn what they have referred to as an attack on democracy. In a claim disputed by the government, Mahama alleged that Akufo-Addo had used the military to influence the electoral outcome. Nearly 13 million Ghanaians are reported to have cast their votes in 38,000 polling booths across the country. Ghana is considered to have one of the more stable democratic systems in the wider West African region. Since the 2000s, transitions of power have occurred without widespread violence. As reports came in of nearly 60 cases of violence on election day, Ghanaian police stated that of this, only 21 were related to the elections. The electoral scene is dominated by the centre-right NPP and the centre-left NDC. However, critics claim that there now seems to be little difference between these two parties as both have endorsed neoliberal policies for decades. Further, both Mahama and Akufo-Addo have faced allegations of corruption. In our next story, Facebook has been accused of violating US antitrust laws. These allegations were part of two parallel lawsuits filed by 46 state governments and the Federal Trade Commission on 9 December. The lawsuits have followed on the heels of a case filed against Google in October by the US Justice Department. The social media giant has been accused of buying out smaller potential competitors in a bid to expand its monopoly. Two major deals that have been mentioned in this case are the billion-dollar acquisition of Instagram in 2012 and the acquisition deal for WhatsApp worth $19 billion in 2014. While the deals at that time had been approved by the FTC, a new investigation was launched in 2019 to look into potential antitrust violations. The suit filed by the FTC quotes a 2008 email from Mark Zuckerberg where he says that it's better to buy than compete. The suit further accuses the company of imposing anti-competitive conditions of access to its platform that ultimately contradict its purported mission to enable sharing. Major accusations made by Facebook in 2020 include the $400 million deal for Jiffy. Furthermore, the company announced last month that it was planning to buy the customer service startup Customer, which is valued at $1 billion. Digital rights activists have often called for the breakup of Facebook and the separation of Instagram and WhatsApp. However, according to financial and legal experts, a long legal battle is to be expected. In our next story, the National Electoral Council of Ecuador has approved the presidential ticket of progressive candidates Andres Arauz and Carlos Rabascal for the 2021 elections. Their candidature was confirmed following certification by the Electoral Dispute Tribunal. This means that there were no pending appeals against the candidates and that the court had disqualified all pending disputes filed by right-wing opposition parties. Nearly 5 such attempts had been made to prevent the participation of the candidates in the upcoming elections. Arauz and Rabascal belong to the Union of Hope Alliance, which is a left coalition of political parties, advocacy groups, trade unions, and social movements. The alliance is led by former President Rafael Correa. Correa was also set to join the ticket with Arauz, but he has been indefinitely disqualified from contesting elections by the current administration of President Lenin Moreno. Rabascal, who is a journalist, has replaced Correa on the ticket as a candidate for vice president. Arauz, who previously served as the economic minister, is the presidential candidate. The general elections in Ecuador are scheduled to be held on February 7th. Campaigns are set to begin on December 31st. In our next story, the US Senate blocked two resolutions to stop arms deals to the UAE in a vote held on December 9th. New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez had introduced resolutions which sought to stop sales of F-35 jets, Reaper drones and missile stockpiles in a deal worth $23 billion. Menendez had co-sponsored the resolutions along with Democratic Senator Chris Murphy and Republican Senator Rand Paul. The arms sales is reportedly connected to the attempt to normalize relations between UAE and Israel as part of the Abraham Accords. President Trump had threatened to veto any resolutions blocking arms sales to the UAE when Congress was first notified on November 10th. Activists had previously petitioned Congress to block arms deals, citing the UAE's record on human rights violations and its involvement in the war in Yemen. UAE also violated the arms embargo on Libya issued by the United Nations. And finally, anti-imperialist movements across the world are extending their solidarity to WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. Activists have addressed an open letter to the British government demanding his immediate release, citing concerns of health and safety. Here is a video feature on the international effort to free Assange. That's all we have time for today. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from around the world. Until then, keep watching People's Dispatch.
Y así verás tu canto y tu bandera.